We are talking now about bookkeeping and accounting. That is honestly one of the best things that you want to make sure that you have on point. You can track all of those expenses through Buildium. And again, if you are not doing it through Buildium, what I highly recommend you to do is put on the Google Drive a folder labeled expenses. And you want to make sure that you are organizing all of your expenses by year. So set up a year for 2020, and that folder, within that folder, you want to have subfolders. And the way that I've organized it, and I recommend you to do, is right now, set up a folder for taxes. Set up a folder for your water bills. Set up a folder for your trash bill, okay? Because if you have anything over a 4 unit, let's say a 5+ unit, you're going to have to then pay through a waste company. And, now if you own your own, if it's anything less than a 5 unit, then at that point in time, it's just part of your city water and trash bill, and that would probably end up being in your water invoice. Okay, so anyway, on top of that, you want to have something for your electric bill through ComEd. Okay, you want to have another folder for your gas. You want to have another folder for your property insurance, and then you'd also want to do you want to also be able to track your expenses. Now, the next thing you should do after in fact, immediately after you've closed the property, you want to set up a calendar and know exactly what expenses are going to hit on that specific month. So, for example, here in the city of Chicago, you are getting a bill every 3 months for your trash. Okay, I'm sorry, for your trash and water. I'm sorry, for your water bill. And if it's your trash, that would be every month. So you want to make sure that you have that in line, and you also want to know any other sort of, so you're going to have your fixed expenses, you're going to have your variable expenses, but you're going to have those all on a calendar so that you can estimate exactly how much it is that you should reserve each month. Because after you pay your mortgage and after you pay your utilities, you want to ensure that you have enough reserves to cover that, water bill that you may not have anticipated. Or, for example, if you don't have an escrow account, which basically means that your mortgage is also you pay a portion on your mortgage for your insurance and taxes. If you don't have it escrowed, and that means that you're paying, twice a year separately your taxes, you want to make sure that when that time hits in April, then guess what? You have enough reserves for that bill as well. Okay, so just another very important thing to track and to make sure that you have. And also, very key, but we're going to get to that in a second. Why don't you come with me now, because I want to show you guys how I make some Colombian coffee. So follow me here. All right, guys, so now I'm going to take you through, in addition to talking about real estate management, how to make a great Colombian coffee, just because it's that important. For those that don't know, I'm actually half Colombian, half Puerto Rican, so I do take a lot of pride in the fact that we have the best coffee in the world. And I have a lot of people here watching the video today, so they're all going to enjoy this great Colombian coffee. But anyway, we're back to it. So talking about property management, as I was mentioning, you do want to make sure that you have all of those expenses being tracked, okay? Because that is going to save you time and headache. And then you also want to make sure that in addition to putting all of those fixed expenses each month on the calendar, that you are tracking all of your repairs on that property. Oh, smells so good. I mean, if you guys could smell that at home, you would love it. You want to make sure that you can distinguish between capital improvements and repairs. Now, the difference between the two is a repair is exactly what you would think, a repair. And that is something that you're going to put as an itemized expense and bring to your accountant at the end of the year. You want to make sure that you have an invoice, and you also want to make sure that you're keeping a track of your W-9s. So any person that does that job for you, you're going to want to make sure that you have all of that information tracked, okay? Because you're going to see that becomes a huge pain at the end of the year if you don't have those receipts or you don't have that invoice. So anyone who's doing work for you, make sure, please, that you invoice them. If they don't know how to do an invoice, then you know what? Just set up an invoice for them, okay? Not a lot of people that know how to do the repairs. Sometimes, a guy just knows how to do a quick fix of the plumbing or, minor issues. Maybe they may not be, highly computer savvy, but you just help them out, okay? It's going to make your life easier. So you set up that invoice, you make a copy of the check, and you have that W-9 form. That's going to save you so much headache. I'm telling you guys, please just do what I say. It will help you tremendously at the end of the year. Okay, and then I also want to make sure there's certain expenses there's certain repairs that you just know are going to be consistent, whether this property's been rehabbed and is brand new, or it's over 100 years old. There's certain expenses, repair items that are going to happen no matter what. So you also want to have a folder for those, and that's going to be like your plumbing, some electrical, and I like to keep a separate folder for those. And then also you want to make sure that you have a list of your vendors. Now, the important thing about having a list of vendors and also a fee schedule alongside the vendors so that you can kind of gauge exactly the sort of pricing you've been getting. And that way you know if, for example, your standard vendor can't make it out to do the repair, if you go on and contact someone else, that you have a ballpark and a range of what it is that is the proper amount that you should be paying, right? You don't want to get screwed and end up paying, hundreds of dollars extra, okay? So keep that in mind. Have that vendor list always up to date, and that's going to be your holy grail, because when these items come up, you're going to have your heating guy, you're going to have your plumber, you're going to have your electrician, you're going to have your general handyman who can just go in and fix, your day-to-day items. You're going to have your cleaning crew. You're going to have everyone that you need on that list, okay? And that, I'm telling you, that is your holy grail, and that is what's going to make all of your properties run efficiently. And as you continue to grow your portfolio, they'll always be with you, okay? And actually, as you grow your portfolio, some of that pricing can kind of start to come down, because if they're your preferred vendor and you're using them on a consistent basis, then there's some negotiating and some leveraging there, right? When it comes to capital improvements, that is something completely separate. What is a capital improvement? Well, that is something that gets actually classified completely differently as a repair, and your accountant is going to treat that separately, okay? And that basically is something that is just, again, on your Schedule E, because that's where the real estate is classified, you are not going to put any of your capital improvements on that Schedule E, okay? And a capital improvement is a major repair to the property that is kind of like a one-time thing, but it's actually helping add a value. So, for example, when we're renovating an apartment building and we've purchased for the purpose of investing, all of those expenses up front are capital improvements, okay? So all the framing, all the flooring, all the windows, all the cabinets, all the new toilets, all of that stuff is a capital improvement. And I would say that once that property is operating, typically most of the expenses after that, okay, after they've actually, you've renovated your apartments and you've rehabbed them and tenants start to move in, all of those expenses usually are now going to be your your repairs and maintenance items. So just wanted to go ahead and share that with you guys, because that's super, super important, all right? And what we've talked about so far is we've talked about the leasing, the marketing, how to actually underwrite a tenant, what to put on the addendums to make sure that you and your tenant have a good, clean foundation from the moment they move in. Exactly not to do security deposits. You're going to be doing move-in fees, okay? When they move in, now you know exactly what it is, their expectations, how to get the rent through Cozy. You know that that's going to be an automatic thing. You have your vendors in case anything comes up, there's any issues. And also some very important quick technical things is if a tenant doesn't pay you, you want to make sure that you place that 5-day notice, okay? And you actually have to hand it to your tenant. You can't just put it on the door. You have to hand it to your tenant for it to be legit. And you also want to make sure that the amounts are all accurate, obviously, including your late fee. And in addition to putting the tenant's name on that 5-day notice, you want to put on there and all unknown occupants, because sometimes they might bring in someone else that was not on the lease. And if you did not name that person in there directly and you don't put unknown occupants, that is an improper service. And yeah, you might get that person out, but the other person might stay there and squat. So you want to make sure that you put and unknown occupants. Very important. And then let's say now that if the tenant is up and he wants to take off, or for whatever reason you don't want to they've been on a month-to-month basis, you've let the lease expire, they've been in there for about 2-3 months, but you don't want to continue their tenancy, you have the right to file a 30-day you have to place a 30-day notice telling them that their lease has expired or that their lease is over and that you're not going to continue to be, that they will not continue their tenancy there in your unit, okay? So you have to make sure that that is a 30-day notice and that you put that on the day before the month starts. If you put it on the day the month starts, then they're going to be there now for an additional 2 months, okay? That month won't count anymore. So you want to make sure that you put that on the day before. Again, a tip and trick that you must learn, and I'm telling you guys, this is stuff that I've learned. Literally, it's a culmination of about 13 years in this business and actually going real strong on the property management side since 2013. So you learn a thing or two, okay? Now, just follow those steps, and I'm telling you, it's going to help you out. And last but not least, let's say the tenant is going to move out. You've called them ideally 2 months in advance. You want to start showing their unit if they're not going to renew. As I mentioned earlier on, you're going to show that 2 months in advance. And when they move out, you're going to want to do a move-out inspection. And then you're going to just walk through and ensure that the unit is in the exact shape that it was left when they originally moved in. And if it's in worse shape, then you can actually sue them for damages, okay? Because since we're not handling security deposits and you only kept that move-in fee, there's really nothing that can kind of tie you to it. So what I've also seen other landlords do is sometimes take it to the extreme, and when a tenant moves in, they sign a certification, and show pictures that this is how the unit was when they moved in, and then they have proof when they're moving out of the damages, okay? So that's kind of extreme, but that's something that you should also probably do, which I will be honest, we don't. You're going to want to interview the right people that you can put on your team, and that is going to be what is going to allow you to reach massive success in the business. Relying on people that can actually show up, and I've said that before in some of the other episodes, you want to make sure that the person actually shows up, okay? They're reliable, okay? And honestly, I'll be honest with you, half the battle is the person showing up, okay? You will be surprised. So that's one, and that they actually do the right work. You're going to start to pile on a lot of materials from the last work. It's very important to keep an inventory of the materials that you have, because that will allow you to also kind of keep things streamlined and moving, and that that if a vendor says, hey, I need another paintbrush, or I need some more paint, you're not spending an extra $50, $75, that you will immediately know, well, hold on, in our inventory we've got a few buckets left, and that just saved you. Everything's about the bottom line. You want to make sure that everything helps the bottom line out, okay? Because at the end of the day, the higher that you have your net operating income, which is your net operating income is basically your revenue less your expenses. What's left over is your net operating. The higher that number is, obviously, is more money in your pocket, okay? And not just that, but it also helps you with your valuation, so that when you go to the bank for a refinance, or if you want to go and sell, that building is worth so much more based off your net operating income. So the way that would work is, it's crazy. You think that an extra $25 or $100 may not be much, but that per month, let's say you're taking $100 a month, okay? Times 12 months, you've been able to add an additional revenue of $100 a month, or reduce your expenses by $100 a month, okay? Then what will happen is, let's say that $1,200 typically will add, depending on the area, but let's say you're dealing with like an 8 cap or a 7 cap. Let me walk you through it and just show you exactly how powerful that is. So here's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to pull out your phone. You add, say, $100 times 12, you're at $1,200. Now, what happens is most property expenses are about 35% of operating revenue. So let's say you take less 35%, or let's say you take that 1,200 times 65%, that leaves you with $780. Times, call it, you're in a good area that has a low cap rate. Okay, so you take that 1,200 times that, 780, and at a 6 cap, you've now added $13,000 to equity. Okay, that's huge, huge. So let's say you charge parking. Okay, now your property is worth an extra $13,000. What can an extra $13,000 do for you today? Okay, so that's exactly why real estate is amazing, because it's not that you're trying to penny pinch, but it's just that every single dollar that you add to your bottom line is adding more value to your property. And you can go out and get a line of credit, okay, which, by the way, I recommend US Bank. US Bank is an amazing bank that allows for what I've seen, they've got just great rates, and you're able to, just do some amazing things there. And yeah, so that is why you want to just focus on just always, taking care of that. But anyway, now let's check up on the coffee. There's a lot of people here that want to just try this out and actually see if this is the real deal or not. So without further ado, let's check it out. Amazing. So to sum up, ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about how to run an efficient and lean, mean running management machine. That means that you know how to properly assess your tenants, you've got great tenant screening, you know how to track your repairs, what to look for in your vendors, and also to keep a track, because again, at the end of the year, you want to make sure that all of those expenses you can just go ahead and hand right off to your accountant. Everything's organized. Ideally, just get Buildium. It'll make your life that much easier. And if you can't get Buildium, then as I mentioned, Google Drive is a lifesaver. Google Drive will be the best way to track all of your expenses and have your leases all in one point. And yeah, that's essentially it. So keep an eye out for all of that. If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and feel free to make a comment below. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to the channel. Please send me a like please put a like and forward and share with all of your friends and family, okay? Now, that's essentially it. Looking forward to having more talks, more episodes where I can share with you all at home all the tricks that I've learned throughout this real estate journey.